Hi, everyone. I am Kate Volman, and I am so thrilled to be joined by the amazing Chris Brogan. He is the publisher and CEO of Owner Magazine and also the host of the Owner's Mind podcast. He is a sought-after speaker and New York Times bestselling author, and he recently came out with a new book called The Freaks Shall Inherit the Earth. So, Chris, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me.
Couldn't be any happier to be here, Kate. Thanks for having me.
So, Chris, I don't remember exactly how I got introduced to you, but I know that I became a huge fan when I read The Impact Equation that you co-wrote with Julien Smith. And I'm just such a fan of your work, and I love the community that you've built. So for those people who don't necessarily know you so well, what do you do and how do you help businesses?
I do as little as I can. I mean, that's really kind of the goal, I think. No, so what I do lately is, I've left behind a lot of consulting work. So I was working with a lot of big companies you'd know, like Disney and Google and Microsoft and all those kinds of places. But what I've ended up doing is I work with owners to help them grow their capabilities and their connections, and through that, build growth through their business. So owners can be the owner of their own cubicle. They might be self-employed, or they might be, bigger entities inside of larger companies. But I just allow people to just define the word owner to their own liking. And so I help owners grow. And so, the way I do that is through a magazine, Owner Magazine, through my podcast, and then through a bunch of other courses to help people do and how they can do it a little bit better. So really, ultimately, entrepreneurship and sort of growth-mindedness at any size.
And why? What inspires you to do this kind of work? Because you're clearly so passionate about it. Anybody that follows you can see that you're just constantly telling people, reach out to me, talk to me, ask me questions. I'm here for you. So what inspires you to do this kind of work?
I think that the probably where it starts was just this realization that I wish that people would treat everyone better in business. As a customer of many businesses, I'm always stunned that I'm sort of the after effect of it, and I keep thinking, I'm why you're paid. Like you should treat me a whole lot better as a customer. And I think about people like my mom going around. My mom's like a really sweet and wonderful person and really deserving of great service. And I started thinking, well, how am I going to make that happen? And the only way I could think of is if I educate more and more people how to deliver much better businesses and see the actual dollar value in that, then I can have a big effect. And on the other side of that, and especially probably related to the new book in some ways, is that I just think that there's a lot of people out there that think they're too weird or too different for kind of what they're into. And I keep wanting to say, but that still matters, and there's still somebody out there for you. And as weird as you are, there's probably a business way that you can make that useful to yourself and some others. And maybe there's some magic in that old silk hat.
So let's talk about your book, because it just came to my Kindle yesterday, so I got to start reading it yesterday. And great title, by the way. How'd you come up with that title?
It's the funniest thing. So I was talking to Matt Holt, who's the publisher at Wiley, and we're friends. And he said, you should write a book with me. And I said, I don't want to write a book with you. I've been publishing my own lately, and it's a lot more fun. And he said, no, come on, it's fun. And I was like, okay. So I titles, and that was the stupidest, craziest of the titles. And he said, I like that one. And I said, wow, that's crazy, Matt. And then, I just thought, he couldn't possibly pick the one I like. So he did. And then they sent me some prospective covers, and I said, well, I like this one, and you probably want me to pick that one. And he goes, no, I like the bats. That seems crazy. So he just really kept just running with what my instinct was telling me. And so really where it all ends, Kate, was that, the meek shall inherit the earth is basically, I always found that like a weird part of the way the Bible was translated, because there's only two ways to look at that, which is like, on one side, Jesus is like, hey, don't worry, you lowly person, you'll get yours in heaven. But at the same time, this could be a really conspiracy theory, but like, we, the supreme overlords, will put this little line in there to say, if you act absolutely kowtowed and submissive to us, don't worry, because you'll get your reward in heaven, so we can still put our thumb on you in the real world. So I like the idea of the freaks inheriting the earth, because I think that you get a lot better benefits in life if you betray how truly wacky you really are in a business value way.
I love that. So who needs to read this book and what are they going to get out of it?
Not everyone needs to read it. I mean, if you are really happily waiting to go to Harvard or Yale and pick up an MBA, and if you think the movie The Wolf of Wall Street is a story, you're probably not my reader. But I would say that the person who wants to read it is someone who has felt often in their life that they don't exactly fit in, and that they maybe have to kind of tone down or throttle back who they are as a human to make sense in the real world. And I would say that that's who's going to have the best time with it. And what I really do, the way James Altucher explained it when he read it, was he said that it's a lot like a ground-up book for entrepreneurship. He kind of book that if you have seen other books that didn't really make sense to you in other languages, I put this in weirdo language so that you could really get at it and figure it out.
So I talk to a lot of different people, and they might be working for a company and they have these ideas of what they want to do, and they just don't really know where to begin. I mean, I'm sure you run across that often, and these are the kinds of people that should be reading this book to help them understand how they could potentially build a business doing the thing that they love to do most. Do you have some, I mean, it seems like there's some strategies in that book around being able to figure that out.
Sure. I mean, I could give you two really easy ways to look at it, and they're sort of disparate, but I think that there's kind of two ways that we come to business a lot of times in our life, which is either we have a product and we are trying really hard to find a home for it somewhere, or I love this community and I wish there was some way that I could make some money in support of this community. And so there's kind of either way. So if you sort of have a product or something that you need to bring the world, then you have to try to gather the right kind of community to you. So you have to say, people who like this would also like me. And that's one way to start building that mindset. The other is I love these people. I wish some way I could be helpful to them. And that's going to give you the other version of what you could do. And I think that, I mean, if there's a baseline way to start thinking about what you're into, that's the way to start thinking about it. So for instance, you could be really, I'm just going to try to make something up on the fly, but you could be really into step music where you only use classical bluegrass instruments or something like that. And so you might say, where the heck am I going to make any money doing that? And you might say, well, okay, maybe I can build a journal of where that kind of music is being played, because it's so obscure that you can't just spend your day Googling for it. So I'll become the resource to help you find it. And then you can maybe sell ads to the kind of people who love bluegrass dubstep music. So, to me, that's what you're kind of looking for, is how do I do something really useful to this community? Grateful Dead fans, there's a whole ton of them who support their entire lifestyle selling bracelets to each other and all this kind of other goofy stuff out of the back of their truck that to Dead fans isn't so goofy. And so to me, there's just a lot of ways that you can think that's going to help. And on the other side, there's another whole way to look at that, which is if you have freakish commitment and passion to the thing you're really into, it doesn't matter what size business you are. Sam Calagione, who runs Dogfish Head. Dogfish Head is not like two guys in a back room. There's a couple hundred employees there making really great beer. Sam will talk ear off about the quality of the hops he bought in Ethiopia that he bought on one side of the marketplace street versus the other side because the sun was hitting them differently and that impacted the taste in the beer. And you're like, oh, I just kind of like beer a little. So I think that, that's the other side of freaks, is that there's a huge corporate side. How do you make really passionate people, the advocates for your company at all levels and at every desk?
And you have kind of an interesting background, because this is the Owner's Magazine. That's new for you. You had a different podcast than you had prior, and you now you have this different direction. I mean, you as a business owner and doing the work that you do, how did you know when to make the shift and when to kind of, I don't want to say rebrand, but do something different and do something new?
I think it deals a little bit, Kate, with bravery. I think that bravery and stupidity mixed together. So I think that with my Human Business Way show and with the company name Human Business Works, it really made sense to me what I was selling, and no one bought. Everyone, kind of said, I don't really get what human business means. I'm sure that seems quaint, but I don't really get how I make money off it. And so I just put new pants on the same duck, and everyone's like, oh, I love this. And, so that's partly true. And then the other part is that, and I said this a bunch of years ago now at a speech with 3,500 or so people, and it was the commented on thing I said, which is just off the cuff. I said, the weirder I am, the more money I make. Like, the weirder and more true to my actual self I am, the more money actually comes my way. And so I really realized that wasn't exactly my business. I was very much hedging my bets all the way, because you have to think, on the one side, I have like small solo entrepreneur type people for whom $100 is a lot of money, that I'm trying to serve. And on the other side, I have Google, who says, oh, 30,000, that's like our cream cheese budget. Come on in, Mr. Brogan. And, like, they could care less. And so I like money, and these big companies have it. But what I didn't like, Kate, was I didn't like that sometimes it could take 11 months for them to do anything with my ideas. And I really didn't like that. I always like Plinko. I would talk to this really important person up here, and they'd be like, yeah! And I'd get to some marketing manager with a spreadsheet, and she'd be like, I just want to go home. Like, I don't even like you. And so I just thought that if I started working with owners, I could talk with many more passionate people. And I've come to learn that part of my success criteria, which is something I read in the book, is you have to know what your own success means. My success criteria includes talking to people who are not dead. I am pretty done with talking to corpses, and I'll save that for the cast of The Walking Dead.
Well, Chris, I think you're unbelievable. I love your content. I listen to your podcast, and actually, I love your little, like, at the end when you do those questions. I'm so curious to know, is there like a top question that you get asked all the time, like the one question that you just get asked from so many people?
I think this is a true story of all life, Kate. I think that if you have something that somebody else thinks they want, you were always asked, how did you do it? They never mean it. Like, if you lose a lot of weight, they're like, oh, you lost a lot of weight. How'd you do that? And you always answer the same thing, because there is no secret trick to this. You say, I went to the gym a lot and I stopped eating crappy food and I, got healthy. And they're like, oh, like I was kind of hoping it was a pill or, a 4-minute workout. Right. And I find that the number one question I'm asked is, how do you do it? And I keep answering the same way and no one believes me. I just keep saying, be helpful. Be helpful. And when people say to me, how did you build a great personal brand? The answer is always the same too. I didn't try to build a personal brand. I just tried to help people. And that, that became the reputation. Oh, that Brogan, I mean, you can ask him any question. He'll help you. He's a weirdo, but he seems nice. So, and that's the number one comment I get. There's two comments, number 1 and 2. You are so much funnier in person than I thought when I did read your stuff. And I thought, I try to be funny. So I'm not a good funny writer, evidently, is what I learned. And number 2 is you seem like the same guy in all formats. Like every time I meet you, you seem fairly genuine. And I said, it seems like so much more work to act. Like maybe I'm just too lazy to be a good actor, but I think I should just be the same guy all the time. Less facts to remember.
Well, I think you seem very genuine. I think you're funny. I love getting your emails on Sunday. It just makes my Sunday, and you're very helpful, and I just appreciate you and the community you built. I mean, every time I've ever emailed you, tweeted you, anything, you've always responded, and I think that a lot of people don't do that when they're building their business, so I appreciate that. You're just such a genuine guy who really wants to help, and you're awesome. So thank you for doing what you do.
You are awesome. This whole thing about starting Female and Beautiful and doing all the work that you've done is really helping the world. So the fact that you let me chat and bother your community makes me really happy. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Chris. And if you want to learn more about Chris, you need to learn more about Chris. So you can go to chrisbrogan.com and from there find out everything that he's up to. And definitely check out the Owner's Mind podcast. It's such a great podcast. Great, like short snippets of interviews with really cool people. Chris, so many awesome people that you interview, and I'm gonna keep my fingers crossed because I hope to one day get a little shout out in your little secret little after the end session.
Super. Well, don't let me surprise you, but that may come in the next episode, seeing as that GarageBand is open on the left side of the screen.
Yes. Chris, you're so awesome. Thank you so much. I'm a fan. I'm going to tell everyone about your book. Check out The Freak Shall Inherit the Earth. And Chris, I will be seeing you online. So thanks so much for taking the time.
Thanks, Kate.